Lee took the challenge. As the bus pulled up to the curb, Lee said, "Hi, I'm Lee Shapiro, the hugging judge. This has got to be one of the most stressful jobs in the whole world. I'm offering hugs to people today to lighten the load a little. Would you like one?" The 6'2", 230-pound bus driver got out of his seat, stepped down and said, "Why not?" Lee hugged him, gave him a heart and waved goodbye as the bus pulled out. The TV crew was speechless. Finally, the commentator said, "I have to admit, I'm very impressed." One day Lee's friend Nancy Johnston showed up on his doorstep. Nancy is a professional clown and she was wearing her clown costume, makeup and all. "Lee, grab a bunch of your hugger kits and let's go out to the home for the disabled." When they arrived at the home, they started giving out balloon hats, hearts and hugs to the patients. Lee was uncomfortable. He had never before hugged people who were terminally ill, severely retarded or quadriplegic. It was definitely a stretch. But after a while it became easier. With Nancy and Lee acquired an entourage of doctors, nurses and orderlies who followed them from ward to ward. After several hours they entered the last ward. These were 34 of the worst cases Lee had seen in his life. The feeling was so grim it took his heart away. But out of their commitment to share their love and to make a difference, Nancy and Lee started working their way around the room followed by the entourage of medical staff, all of whom by now had hearts on their collars and balloon hats on their heads. Finally, Lee came to the last person, Leonard. Leonard was wearing a big white bib which he was drooling on. Lee looked at Leonard dribbling onto his bib and said, "Let's go, Nancy. There's no way we can get through to this person." Nancy replied, "Come on, Lee. He's a fellow human being, too, isn't he?" Then she placed a funny balloon hat on his head. Lee took one of his little red hearts and placed it on Leonard's bib. He took a deep breath, leaned down and gave Leonard a hug. All of a sudden Leonard began to squeal, "Idiot! Idiot!" Some of the other patients in the room began to clang things together. Lee turned to the staff for some sort of explanation only to find that every doctor, nurse and orderly was crying. Lee asked the head nurse, "What's going on?" Lee will never forget what she said. "This is the first time in 23 years we've ever seen Leonard smile. How simple it is to make a difference in the lives of others. Jack Canfield and Mark V. Hansen, it can't happen here. We need 4 hugs a day for survival. We need 8 hugs a day for maintenance. We need 12 hugs a day for growth." Virginia Satir. "We always teach people to hug the other in our workshops and seminars. Most people respond by saying, 'You could never hug people where I work.' Are you sure?" Here is a letter from a graduate of one of our seminars. "Dear Jack, I started out this day in rather a bleak mood. My friend Rosalind stopped over and asked me if I was giving hugs today. I just grumbled something, but then I began to think about hugs and everything during the week. I would look at the sheet you gave us on how to keep the seminar alive and I would cringe when I got to the part about giving and getting hugs because I couldn't imagine giving hugs to the people at work. Well, I decided to make it Hugs Day and I started giving hugs to the customers who came to my counter. It was great to see how people just brightened up. An MBA student jumped up on top of the counter and did a dance. Some people actually came back and asked for more. These 2 Xerox repair guys, who were kind of just walking along not really talking to each other, were so surprised. They just woke up and suddenly were talking and laughing down the hall. It feels like I hugged everybody in the Wharton Business School, plus whatever was wrong with me this morning. which included some physical pain, is all gone. I'm sorry that this letter is so long, but I'm just really excited. The neatest thing was at one point there were about 10 people all hugging each other out in front of my counter. I couldn't believe this was happening. Love, Pamela Rogers P.S. On the way home I hugged a policeman on 37th Street. He said, "Wow. Policemen never get hugs. Are you sure you don't want to throw something at me?" Another seminar graduate sent us the following piece on hugging. Hugging is healthy. It helps the immune system, cures depression, reduces stress and induces sleep. It's invigorating, rejuvenating and has no unpleasant side effects. Hugging is nothing less than a miracle drug. Hugging is all natural. It is organic, naturally sweet, no artificial ingredients, non-polluting, environmentally friendly and 100% wholesome. Hugging is the ideal gift. Great for any occasion, fun to give and receive, shows you care, comes with its own wrapping and, of course, fully returnable. Hugging is practically perfect. No batteries to wear out, inflation-proof, non-fattening, no monthly payments, theft-proof and non-taxable. Hugging is an underutilized resource with magical powers. When we open our hearts and arms, we encourage others to do the same. Think of the people in your life. Are there any words you'd like to say? Are there any hugs you want to share? Are you waiting and hoping someone else will ask first? Please don't wait. Initiate. Charles Faraoni. Jack Canfield, who used our Makes a Difference, a teacher in New York, decided to honor each of her seniors in high school by telling them the difference they each made. Using a process developed by Ellis Bridges of Del March, California, she called each student to the front of the class, one at a time. First she told them how the student made a difference to her and the class. Then she presented each of them with a blue ribbon imprinted with gold letters which read, "Who I am makes a difference." Afterwards the teacher decided to do a class project to see what kind of impact recognition would have on a community. She gave each of the students 3 more ribbons and instructed them to go out and spread this acknowledgement ceremony. Then they were to follow up on the results, see who honored whom and report back to the class in about a week. One of the boys in the class went to a junior executive in a nearby company and honored him for helping him with his career planning. He gave him a blue ribbon and put it on his shirt. Then he gave him 2 extra ribbons, and said, "We're doing a class project on recognition, and we'd like you to go out, find somebody to honor, give them the blue ribbon, then give them the extra blue ribbon so they can acknowledge the third person to keep this acknowledgement ceremony going. Then please report back to me and tell me what happened." Later that day the junior executive went in to see his boss, who had been noted, by the way, as being kind of a grouchy fellow. He sat his boss down and he told him that he deeply admired him for being a creative genius. The boss seemed very surprised. The junior executive asked him if he would accept the gift of the blue ribbon and would he give him permission to put it on him. His surprised boss said, "Well, sure." The junior executive took the blue ribbon and placed it right on his boss's jacket above his heart. As he gave him the last extra ribbon, he said, "Would you do me a favor? Would you take this extra ribbon and pass it on by honoring somebody else? The young boy who first gave me the ribbons is doing a project in school and we want to keep this recognition ceremony going and find out how it affects people." That night the boss came home to his 14-year-old son and sat him down. He said, "The most incredible thing happened to me today. I was in my office and one of the junior executives came in and told me he admired me and gave me a blue ribbon for being a creative genius. Imagine, He thinks I'm a creative genius. Then he put this blue ribbon that says who I am makes a difference on my jacket above my heart. He gave me an extra ribbon and asked me to find somebody else to honor. As I was driving home tonight, I started thinking about whom I would honor with this ribbon, and I thought about you. I want to honor you. My days are really hectic, and when I come home I don't pay a lot of attention to you. Sometimes I scream at you for not getting good enough grades in school and for your bedroom being a mess. But somehow tonight, I just wanted to sit here and, well, just let you know that you do make a difference to me. Besides your mother, you are the most important person in my life. You're a great kid and I love you. The startled boy started to sob and he couldn't stop crying. His whole body shook. He looked up at his father and said through his tears, I was planning on committing suicide tomorrow, Dad, because I didn't think you loved me. Now I don't need to. Heedless bridges one at a time. A friend of ours was walking down a deserted Mexican beach at sunset. As he walked along, he began to see another man in the distance. As he grew nearer, he noticed that the local native kept leaning down, picking something up and throwing it out into the water. Time and again he kept hurling things out into the ocean. As our friend approached even closer, he noticed that the man was picking up starfish that had been washed up on the beach and, one at a time, he was throwing them back into the water. Our friend was puzzled. He approached the man and said, Good evening, friend. I was wondering what you are doing. I'm throwing these starfish back into the ocean. You see, it's low tide right now and all of these starfish have been washed up onto the shore. If I don't throw them back into the sea, they'll die up here from lack of oxygen. I understand, my friend replied, but there must be thousands of starfish on this beach. You can't possibly get to all of them. There are simply too many. And don't you realize this is probably happening on hundreds of beaches all up and down this coast? Can't you see that you can't possibly make a difference? The local native smiled, bent down and picked up yet another starfish, and as he threw it back into the sea, he replied, Made a difference to that one. Jack Canfield and Mark V. Hansen. The Gift Bennett Cerf relates this touching story about a bus that was bumping along a back road in the south. In one seat a wispy old man sat holding a bunch of fresh flowers. Across the aisle was a young girl whose eyes came back again and again to the man's flowers. The time came for the old man to get off. Impulsively he thrust the flowers in tough girl's lap. I can't see you love the flowers, he explained, and I think my wife would like for you to have them. I'll tell her I gave them to you. The girl accepted the flowers, then watched the old man get off the bus and walk through the gate of a small cemetery. Jack Canfield and Mark V. Hansen. A brother like that a friend of mine named Paul received an automobile from his brother as a Christmas present. On Christmas Eve when Paul came out of his office, the street urchin was walking around the shiny new car.